Welcome back to our extended coverage of the topic of uranium mining on the Arizona Strip and the new EIS that will determine how that is handled in the future. Gentlemen, let's continue this discussion. Problems. You know, identify the biggest problem. Jim, you look like you're ready to say something.
Well, I've been thinking about, withdrawal and protection issues that have been going on since, golly, the Wilderness Act, and maybe even before that. But, we've been under the thumb or under the cloud of what do we do about wilderness study areas as pursued by forces from outside the area, like Maurice Henchy from New York State. And now, more recently, the mineral withdrawal and all that has been aggravated, I think, by environmental concerns that can be traced directly to Congressperson Grijalva's district, and he's from Yuma, Arizona, and down in that area, they've been fighting a open pit copper mine in Pima County outside of Tucson. So it looks like it's a convenient kind of an issue that doesn't cost him anything to promote this kind of thing. And now the Secretary has taken it up, and we've got to figure out how to put the right kind of thought into it to effectively resist all that external baloney.
Alan?
And I'd kind of follow up on some of the thoughts that Jim has there. Our natural resources, I think, in this country are one of the things that have allowed us to become a great country. And, starting with the spotted owl a few years ago in the Northwest, we basically eliminated the timber industry up there. So I work with commissioners around the country, and particularly up in that area, counties that had 18, 20, 30 mills in their county are now, if they've got one left, why they're doing good. And they're not just closed down, they're torn down and gone, so the infrastructure is not there anymore. And we look at our oil gas industry with the debacle we had there in the Gulf and the mess there, why we're in the process of shutting that down, and they're not drilling there anymore, even though courts ordered them to start drilling again 3 different times. Why there's nothing going on. They shut down the Uinta Basin and the Intermountain West on oil gas. They had tremendous interest by companies up there wanting to come in and generate this energy that we need in our country. Uranium's the same thing, as Jim mentioned. We're importing 90% of the uranium we use. And this is all money going out of the country, not only money going out, but it's high-paying jobs that would be here as well, that we're losing out on.
Well, and it seems to be a double-edged sword, because there are two topics that continue to come up. One of them is local economies and jobs, but the other one is actually the resources produced as far as being viable, internal, non-imported resources for us to build. So that there is another side of the issue. But Scott, you've got a perspective that I'm sure is going to be a little different, and it needs to be heard.
Well, we were talking about this at the break, but I think, public lands management, since these are public lands, they're owned by everyone, basically all taxpayers, and we are, very sensitive to the needs and the concerns of the local governments and local communities, because that's, one of BLM's important mandates. But there's this inherent tension between local control and and balancing the concerns of national, interests. I mean, a person that lives back in New York, that may recreate out here has concerns about these areas, and I know that's a touchy, kind of sensitive issue for local communities and local governments. But it's just part of our job is trying to find that right balance, and how we're going to manage these public lands for multiple uses, and that doesn't necessarily mean every use on every acre. And usually through our land use planning processes, where we try to come up with that balance and make allocations on different uses taking places in different areas and different combinations.
When policy manuals come from Washington, this is a question specifically to you, because you are a district manager. You have a relationship with these gentlemen. You have you have your charges and responsibilities, and it sounds like you clearly understand them. Is the centralized nature of the fact that it's becoming more and more centralized, and there are more policies and manuals and ways that you're supposed to do things, like the policy that came out with wildlands sets a whole new set of criteria. Does that make your job easier or more difficult as a district manager? And maybe you don't dare answer that.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't see that there's an increased trend to, we've always had, every administration has its policies or priorities that it puts emphasis on. And, of course, we have the laws and regulations. Those are, harder to change, takes more time to change those, and policies. So policies are usually where, an administration will, put its emphasis. But, with that said, again, it's our job here at the ground level is to try to, find that right balance, in terms of, meeting the needs and the concerns of local communities and, balancing with all these other mandates that we have that we're responsible for carrying out.
Yeah, I guess it would seem to me that if there were a little more authority and autonomy within a district office, that you might be able to have a little bit more creative way.
Well, we actually, the way that BLM is structured, we have kind of a three-tier management organization where we have the state director, the district managers, and the field managers. And the organization is really set up to, keep the decision-making, the day-to-day decision-making as close to the ground as we can. I mean, obviously, there's high-profile projects like the withdrawal EIS that, the decision-making on those gets elevated because they're a national concern. But normally, our day-to-day, even for land use planning, the state director is the decision-maker. But, we're the ones that are charged with basically developing and implementing those plans. So, BLM's overall structure is to try to keep the decision-making down as close to the ground as possible.
I think it's important that we realize that in some senses, just like in democracy, things aren't always that clean. But I kind of resist mindlessness at whatever level, local or national.
No, that's not an accusation at the table here, by any means. No, that would just be a general statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And a comment of support.
There you go.
Yeah.
Alan, any other thoughts?
I'm just concerned about the direction we're headed in the country, and that's basically where I'm coming from.
Well, I think it's very clear to everybody, if you've tuned in, you've taken the time to spend this extra time to be with us today, that substantive input is very critical at this point because the EIS is out there, and when it's comments on the final plan or the final draft, that's not the time to be involved in this process if you've got a concern or passion. Is that not correct?
That's right. Now's the time.
This is the time to do this. How long is that window going to be?
It's there's a 45-day comment period. And then we're holding the four public meetings during that comment period.
There will be, as alluded to here, probably environmental organizations are going to be very organized and are going to input that. If you are local communities and you have an interest in this is your time to make those substantive comments and get them into the record so that they can affect the outcome and the decision. Are you gentlemen available if there are any viewers that want information? All of you available as far as...
Absolutely, you bet.
Okay, so right under this on our website we can post emails and contact for you.
Be sure to warn them that we're fairly opinionated.
That's okay with you, Scott, as well?
Yes. Well, when the EIS comes out, it identifies me as the designated federal official to send comments to and for any questions to come to me.
Well, as always, my belief is that direct dialogue and input from people always brings the best decisions, which is part of the reason we do this program, is so that we can get these issues out and get them discussed and get the sides clearly delineated, which tends not to happen. So. We thank you for taking the time. Obviously, if you've come to watch this section of the show, you're interested in this topic, and we encourage you to get involved. Thank you again for joining us. Gentlemen, any further or final comments?
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.